All right. Welcome back to the SFL show where we like to talk sports, family, and life. Darius Debo Barnes here. And man, do we have a lot to talk about this week. A lot happened this weekend. We got a national championship in college football. Already got some gear that's gotten here and that's on the way. We had some I'm not gonna call them big NFL games past this weekend, but we had some really huge results. Mainly that Dolphins, Buffalo Bills game. We'll talk a little bit about that and how that affects the payoff seeding, some of the matchups that we're excited for this weekend. And then, man, after the season, the coaching changes. Some were surprises on the college and the NFL level. We'll talk a little bit about that. And just a proud moment that we'll just touch on at the end that I got from my kids. So a lot going on right now. A lot going on. So let's go ahead. Let's start with the national championship. We had Michigan going against Washington. One of those old throwback games that we used to see. If you are probably somewhere between 40 and 50, you probably remember this matchup in the Rose Bowl, Big Ten, Pac 12 matchup. So, kind of a throwback game. And I got to say, it was a pretty entertaining game. Now, there were some times throughout the game, mainly throughout that second and third quarter, where offenses stall, but it still had some excitement to it. What's interesting about this particular game that if you're not a college football fan and if you did not watch the game and you saw the final score 34 to 13, you would think that, oh, this was a blowout, was not a competitive game. That is not accurate. That is not true. This was a competitive game up to the last, I would say, 6, 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. The way it came out or the way it played out was Michigan gets the ball, start the game, they drive it down the field. You see exactly what they're trying to do in that first drive. That's establish their dominance up front with that offensive line. They're moving the ball. Don't think they threw many passes that first drive, that first series that they got the ball. Donovan Edwards breaks it up the left side. No, he runs to the hole, bounces out to the left, goes 40, 45-yard touchdown. And you see, okay, this is what it's going to be. Washington gets the ball. They kind of trickle downfield. Once again, you see exactly what Michigan is trying to do. They're trying to pressure Michael Penix. They want him to get the ball out fast. He misses a couple of throws here, misses a couple of throws there. I think they ended up getting a field goal in that first series, though, driving it down, getting the field goal. Michigan gets the ball back once again, just establishing that dominance up front. Donovan Edwards, I think he had 2 carries for like 80 something yards and 2 touchdowns because then he breaks it down the right side. Another 40, 45-yard touchdown. And now Michigan is up 14 to 3. And that was pretty much it for scoring for a while. And you had a bunch of three and outs or a bunch of small drives, maybe 6, 7 play drives, then punt. Then this team would get it 6, 5, 6 play drive, then punt. So the offenses kind of stalled till the last, I would say, 2 minutes of that first half, where you had Washington drive down, score that touchdown, make it 14 to 10, and that was pretty much it. That was pretty much the gist of all the scoring in the first half. It was not much more that happened after that. You had halftime, you came out, Washington got the ball, the first possession, they threw an interception. Michigan got the ball on their side of the ball, on their side of the field. They kicked the field goal, made it 17 to 10. Washington got it back, kicked the field goal, made it 17 to 13. And that was the score till 7 minutes in the fourth quarter for the most part. So, not a lot to talk about in regards to excitement from that game. Of course, being a fan of Michigan. It was really good to see them pull this out. The last quarter was really when things started to open up for them. They got the ball. They, Washington. They just couldn't get anything going, and it. I was talking to my dad. Just since I was talking to my father about this game because Michael Penix did not look good. He didn't look good. He didn't look healthy. My father, he was calling me. He was like, "Can this quarterback throw?" I mean, because people don't look at Washington a lot. No, obviously because they're all the way up on the west side. So even though he was second in the Heisman Trophy, a lot of people don't really know who he is. So he was like, "Can he throw?" Because he's missing a lot of throws or whatever the case may be. Some of these guys were open, and some of these guys he's not seeing. And I was trying to explain to him, yes, he's actually really good. I think the pressure is kind of getting to him, though. They put so much pressure on Michael Penix, even though he was not getting sacked a lot. He was getting hit just about every play. I even said that he looked like Indiana Michael Penix more than he did Washington Michael Penix. A lot of people don't know Michael Penix with the Indiana for his first couple of years in college, transferred to Washington. Of course, him being in Indiana in the Big Ten, Michigan plays them pretty much every year. So I've seen Michael Penix play, and he looked more like that guy than he did the guy that was going against Texas and Oregon and some of the big games that they had against Washington this year. And I think it was the pressure. I don't want to put all of the blame on that pressure because I also think he was injured. He looked beat up and battered by the end of that game. He's walking to the huddle. He's holding his side. We saw what happened with his ankle getting stepped on. He's getting, his offensive line is getting pushed back. Number 78 for Michigan had one play where he just bum rushes the offensive lineman, and he just got beat up pretty much the entire game, and I think that started to catch up with him, which is why you saw him trying to get the ball out of his hand so fast. No, which is why he missed throws, which is why he was high with some stuff. He was off. Not the best game for him. Not the best game for him, and I think Michigan's defense had a lot to do with that. So, great game for the Wolverines. They capped off the perfect season. No one knows what Jim Harbaugh is going to do right now. Of course, we think we do. This team that Michigan had was pretty dominant on the defensive side. On the offensive side, they did have some deficiencies on that side of the ball, but I think that running game and that defense was able to propel them throughout the season when they were struggling with getting the ball out on offense or getting points on the board on offense. So, great year. Was not an easy year for them. We know some of the turmoil that they went through this year. It's going to be interesting to see how this championship is looked at by others. I know there's some that feels like Michigan are cheaters. And I understand that concept. I don't think that it played a part in them winning this championship. I think those that just don't like Michigan, a la Ohio State fans or fans that just feel like their team didn't win and Michigan held them up for winning for whatever reason. They probably not going to look fondly on this championship. But I honestly don't feel like the cheating scandal had anything to do with them winning this championship. Not because I'm a fan, not because I root for the particular team, but number one, people like to bring up, oh, well, he was suspended for the first 3 games of the season. And I'm like, well, that kind of had nothing to do with much of anything. I think that was more so about he bought a cheeseburger for someone, and they saying I guess he lied about it. I guess they're saying that okay, well when he was asked about it, he wasn't cooperative. Therefore, this is a violation. Honestly speaking, in my opinion, has nothing to do with football. Has nothing to do with the games. Has nothing to do with how they play on the field, whatever the case may be. I think people would try to throw that in to add to their narrative. The cheating scandal. That's always kind of made me think. Now, this may be some biasness because I am a fan, but when you say, hey, well, they cheated at the beginning of the season, okay, if you're saying that, are we saying that they continued to cheat towards the end of the season? Because they still went through Penn State and Ohio State and Alabama. And Washington. I mean, are we saying that they cheated those games as well? No, or are we saying that they cheated against UNLV and Bowling Green or whatever the case may be? That's just so much out there that we don't know. So I'm like, okay, are we saying? I just don't get it. No, I think that anytime you hear the word scandal, um, that is reason to doubt or to add to why you don't like someone or why you don't like a particular team. I like what Dominic Foxworth said on his podcast a few days ago. It made me laugh, and I'm like, he's right. And he was like, the Big Ten needs to grow up. No, because they're around here snitching on each other. Like you don't think the SEC is cheating. You don't think they're doing stuff. No, but they're not telling on each other. I thought that was a funny line. That was a good one, Mr. Foxworth. I thought that was very funny. But I don't think that the cheating scandal had much to do with the gauntlet that they went through at the end of the season. I think them going through Penn State, Ohio State, then beating Iowa in the Big Ten championship, Alabama in the playoffs, then Washington. I think that's legitimate. I don't think that cheating had anything to do with it because Michigan looked better in all of those games. It's interesting hearing people talk about Georgia, and they're saying, okay, well, and I heard Lebertard them talk about this as well. They were saying, well, Georgia was in it. No, Georgia, no, would have won. They're going to be they're the national championship, and it seems like they're basing that on their past. Like, okay, because they won it 2 years in a row, that's what we're basing it on. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't think Georgia was the dominant team this year that they were the past 2 years. I just don't think they were. I think they showed that when Alabama beat them. No, and if you look at Georgia's schedule, they really did not play a tough schedule this year. Remember, Georgia struggled to beat Auburn. Juggle struggled to beat South Carolina. No, they probably should have lost those games if those coaches do things a little bit differently. The toughest games that Georgia played this year were against Missouri and maybe Tennessee and Ole Miss, and those teams there to me weren't dominant teams. So I don't look at Georgia as the world beater that they were last year or the year before. So I really think that Michigan would have handed it to Georgia as well. I honestly thought that at their best, Alabama was better than Georgia because I'm a little bit more afraid of Jalen Milroe than I am Carson Beck. So I understand people that feel that way based on their past, but I think that if you look at what Georgia brought to the table this year, I didn't see them as this dominant world beater that we've seen them be in the past. And that's not to take away anything that they've done in the past. I'm not doing that at all. I'm just saying every year is different. And this year, they didn't seem to be this dominant force as they were in the past. So, national champs. Yes, I did order gear. Yes, I do have some things coming to celebrate us being national champs since I was a senior in high school back in 1997. So as I was getting ready to go to the military, so I'm excited. Did a lot of screaming and yelling with my wife, who was an Alabama fan, graduated from Alabama. So I'm kind of got bragging rights on her for the upcoming year. So we'll see what happens as time goes on because now is where the story really gets interesting. Of course, we know the playoffs, they're going to go to a 12-team playoffs. Don't know how I feel about that. Got to see how that plays out. Maybe if I see their version as to how they're going to do it, I can have get an idea as to what we're going to be looking at. Of course, conferences are realigning. We'll see how that plays out, and you have coaches leaving. You have coaches leaving. It's been a big week on both the college and the NFL level. Of course, with college, no, nobody knows what Harbaugh is going to do. Most feel like he will go ahead and make that jump back to the NFL, which I will completely understand. I think he's accomplished everything that he needs to accomplish here at Michigan. I'm not too much worried about the sanctions. I know people are like, well, the NCAA is going to come down on them. And I'm like, well, no, like I said, I don't know how much the cheating scandal is going to come down. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. Of course, nobody knows what Connor Stallions was doing, but there hasn't been anything that says, okay, Harbaugh knows about this. Now you can take that how you want to take it. If you like Michigan and Harbaugh, you'll probably feel that way. If you don't like them, you'll probably say, yes, he did. He knew. So, I mean, that's subjective. We don't know. But as far as the other sanctions, him getting the cheeseburger, this, that, whatever, I don't know how hard they're going to come down on him for that. So I don't think it's going to be anything that has to do with sanctions. Of course, I don't have the inside information either. I think that he would just want to go simply because of the fact that he's accomplished the things that he wanted to accomplish, at Michigan. He's got them back to a point where they're recognized nationally. He's beaten Ohio State 3 years in a row, and they seem to have the advantage of that series right now. He's won a national championship. He's been to the playoff 3 years in a row. I mean, he's done pretty much what he was set or came to do, and I am completely satisfied with the results that he has given Michigan. Completely happy with where he has us right now, and if he decides to move on, I will be completely fine with that. No, as a fan, no, as a no someone that roots for the team, I will be completely fine with that. I would be very interested to see who they give the head coaching rings to. Would it go to Sharon Moore, who has been a head coach over a couple of games this year already? Will Mike Hart be bumped up to maybe offensive coordinator or something like that? Would they bring somebody with more experience in? I mean, I don't know. No, but it would be very interesting to see how that works. And who knows? Maybe he stays. Maybe he stays and he becomes Nick Saban of college football because Nick Saban decided to hang it up. So we'll go ahead and we'll flip over to Alabama and see exactly what is going to happen with them. So of course, probably, arguably, the greatest coach in college football history has decided to retire. Um, was somewhat of a surprise. I will admit I was surprised that he decided to call it quits. You're hearing certain things. Once again, I'm not an insider, but you're hearing there are things going on with his family. Maybe he just wants to take a break. Maybe he just needs to step away right now to be there for them. Don't know. Not no, I'm going to put anything out there. Not that this will hit the media mainstream anyway. But he has decided to go ahead and hang it up. And this is going to be interesting because if we can go all the way back to when Nick Saban was hired, Alabama had a good history, but they weren't very good at the time. And Nick Saban brought in discipline and he brought in a culture that I was looking at some of the numbers that were coming out, and it was kind of things like he's won 10 games for like the last 15 years, no, six national titles. I mean, just crazy numbers. I'm like, man, this coach has really put a stamp on this team. And I don't know if anybody else is going to be able to do that. And I think that Alabama fans have gotten so spoiled that it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to allow another coach, if they're able to sit through another coach as he tries to establish his way, and that may mean winning 8 games or 9 games or whatever the case may be. We don't know who the coaching candidates are. Um, I'm sure someone knows. I don't know who they are. I always thought that when Nick Saban retired, the logical choice was Dabo Sweeney, simply because of the fact that if you've heard his story, him being from Pelham, Alabama, being a walk on, all of those things, he talked so fondly about Alabama home, things like that. I always thought that when Nick Saban retired, he would be the one to step in and take over that program. The only thing with that is, does Alabama want Dabo now? Simply because of the fact that his seasons in Clemson for the last 2 years or so have not been the greatest. And Alabama wants winners. That's who they want. Especially after being what they are. So it's going to be interesting. I'm sure they're looking house for some things. I'm sure they'll try to bring in some big name guys. But it's going to be interesting to see how Alabama reconstructs itself. How they because they have a really dominant image right now. So it's going to be interesting to see what that image is going to be without Nick Saban. So we wish Saban, his family, the best of luck. Thank you, Nick, for all that you've done for college football. For the longest, I held a grudge against Nick Saban because being a Dolphin guy, we were looking for Nick to come in and be the savior of the Dolphins. And of course, the I'm not going to be the Alabama head coach. I still remember that press conference, and of course, after that season, he becomes the Alabama head coach. We have that 1-15 season under Cam Cameron, who drafts Ted again with the first pick. So the rest is history. So I held on to that for a very long time in regards to Nick Saban. I always said if I had to choose between Alabama and Auburn, I would go with Auburn because I don't want to root for Nick Saban because he left us back in Miami. But all joking aside, what Nick Saban did for college football is tremendous. It is amazing, and I don't know if that would ever be duplicated. So I wish Coach Saban the best. If it's family things that need to be taken care of, you are in our thoughts, you are in our prayers with you and your family. And I hope that you can just ride off into the sunset knowing that you are the greatest coach to ever coach college football. And it's not just from Alabama. You look at what you did at LSU, Michigan State. You have always been a phenomenal coach. So good luck with the future. I'm sure we'll see you on college game day, things like that. Hopefully we will because I think that you actually are funny. Now you have the opportunity to be funny. Now hopefully you take advantage of that. So that is where we're at with college football. Great season, great storylines. Looking forward to next year, seeing who's going to be on top. Seeing the new realignment of the conferences, and it's going to be some fun. Can't wait for the rest of my gear to get here. So, um, great fun college football season this year. Really enjoyed it, and couldn't end it any better with the Michigan Wolverines winning the championship. Yeah. So, all right. Let's go ahead. Let's switch over to the NFL. Now, my brothers, who are Buffalo Bills fans, as soon as this Miami Dolphin Bills game was over, they're texting me. So when are you gonna do your show? So when are you gonna do your show? When are you gonna talk about the Dolphins? When are you gonna talk about the Dolphins? Well, we're gonna talk about the Dolphins. We're gonna talk about the Bills. We're gonna talk about the playoff matchups, and then we had this coaching carousel going on in the NFL as well. So we'll talk through that as well. So Sunday, I will say first slate of games. There weren't any interesting games on except for one. Tennessee and Jacksonville. What made that game interesting were the stakes. All right. Saturday's games, they had a little bit more interest simply because of the stakes as well. You had Pittsburgh, you had Baltimore playing in the monsoon pretty much for the most part, and stakes were on the line there. Of course, Pittsburgh had to win that game to have an opportunity to be in the playoffs. And though Baltimore was resting everybody. Just to be honest, they were getting ready. They were resting everyone, so they can get ready for the playoffs, get geared up for the playoffs. So you had that game. Second game was the Texans and the Texans and the Colts. And winner of that game had an opportunity to win, the division and have a playoff spot. And then, of course, taking it over to Sunday, what happened in that Jacksonville, Tennessee game played a part as well. So Pittsburgh ended up winning. They put themselves in a really good position to have a playoff spot. Baltimore is resting everyone, understandable. The Texans ended up beating the Colts. So with that win, they have an opportunity to win the division as well as get into the playoffs based on what happens on Sunday. We roll over to Sunday. Like I said, only interesting game that we had that day, in my opinion, was that Jacksonville and that Tennessee game in that one top slate. And man, I was surprised that Jacksonville lost. I'll be honest with you. I felt like they would beat Tennessee. No, I really did. I felt like they would go in there, they would dominate them. They would show that we are the cream of the crop in this division. That is a division game. and everything would be like it was last year for the most part. But they lost. No, not only did they lose, Tennessee really outplayed them on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. And we know Tennessee is kind of going through a flux right now. We don't know really know. Well, we do now, but at the point in time, we didn't know if Mike Vrabel was going to be there. We didn't know if Derrick Henry was going to be there. Didn't really know what was going on. But they were able to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, who everybody thought was going to win that division. It's very interesting because there was one point in time I was looking at NFL Network and I was watching the Dolphins Chiefs game. Of course, they had that game on there. No, simply because that's probably one of the playoff match. That's one of the playoff matchups that's coming up. We'll talk a little bit about that. And I remember after that game, they come on. They say, "Oh well, the Dolphins win." And now the Chiefs they go to 7-2. No, the Dolphins they dropped to 6-3, so that leaves the top of the division. The Baltimore Ravens they were like 7-2. Dolphins are 6-3. And the Jaguars, I think, was like 6-2 at the time, and they were playing later on. So the Jaguars were in a really good position to win that division at one point in time. And injuries, things of that nature, has really hindered them. And they ended up losing and not even making it to the playoffs, which means that the Houston Texans wins the AFC South and they have a home playoff game going up against guess who? The Cleveland Browns. You know, um, and that's going to be interesting because CJ Stroud is really good. No, and even though he went to Ohio State, I can't doubt he's a really good quarterback. And you look at that, and it's funny because you don't look at the Houston Texans and see a bunch of weapons. They have Nico Collins, who I did not really think was that good at Michigan. I thought he was decent, but it looks like Nico can be a borderline number one receiver. And I'm like, man, I didn't see this at Michigan. But he has Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz, pretty much. No, Tank Dell is hurt. He was having a great season. But it's not like he's loaded with a bunch of weapons. And CJ is really playing really good ball now. So I'm pretty sure the Cleveland Browns will be favored, but that's not going to be an easy game for them. I think the Texans, with how they play defense and with D'Amico Ryan and how he's motivated that team, they're going to be a tough out. So we'll see how that goes. So of course, that's one of the playoff matchups. We'll see if we can go through, all of them. The 4 o'clock slate game, you kind of had those NFC teams going. You had the Cowboys going against Washington. You had the Eagles going against the Giants. Who don't know what's going on with the Eagles right now. We'll see what's going on with that. And a couple of other games were going on that probably had no bearing on the seeding. I think Detroit, the game they were playing against, I think that might have played a part. They had an opportunity to get that 2 seed, depending on if the Cowboys and if the Eagles lost or if some things happened there. The 49ers were going against the Rams. I know the Rams, they were sitting just about everybody because they were already in the playoffs. The 49ers were already in the playoffs, so they were sitting there. We had a Sam Darnold was a Carson Wentz game, which was pretty interesting to watch. You know, and there was just really nothing interesting in those 1 o'clock and those 4 o'clock games. I'm trying to remember and think through. The Jacksonville Tennessee game was interesting because of the seeding. In our afternoon games, believe it or not, the most interesting game was the Eagles and Giants because it was going to see, we wanted to see if the Eagles were able to fix whatever issue they were having. And no, they weren't. I looked at that score at one point in time and it was 24-0. And I had to call my older brother and say, am I looking at this right? No, what is going on with the Eagles? Because they weren't sitting everyone. Jalen Hurts played, not Swift and Devontae Smith did not play because of injuries, but AJ Brown played that defense. They just do not look good right now. And I don't know if it's the coaching. I don't know what's going on. I've been talking about the Eagles pretty much all year, saying they did not look right. And man, it seems like they're playing their worst ball at the worst time, which is as they're getting ready to go back into the playoffs. There's another team that's doing the same thing that we'll talk about in that night game. But man, the Eagles. No, if they don't get it together, it's going to be one and done for them. So um, that was probably the most interesting afternoon game, simply because of what happened or what you wanted to see from them. So pretty much on Sunday, the game that everybody was looking forward to was the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. The way this played out, winner is the 2 seed. No, the loser, if the Dolphins win, Buffalo would have went to the 7 seed and they would have just ran it back the next week in Miami. And if Buffalo win, Miami is the 6 seed and they would go to Kansas City in 0-degree weather and play their playoff game there. And of course, Buffalo would end up playing Pittsburgh. So um, that game comes on, and here it is. To my younger brothers, we're going to talk about the Dolphins. And it was tough to watch. And here's why. If you are a Dolphin fan, no, if you're a Dolphin fan, I know that I listen to people and I read what people say, and they're saying, "Hey, Dolphins have gotten better over the years. There was a point in time where they were an irrelevant team. No one talked about it. Nobody cared about them unless it was something locally. If you listen to the local stations, they talked about the Dolphins. But now they're in the national media, and when it's all said and done, you had an 11-6 season. You got Pro Bowl players all across the field, whatever the case may be, and they saying you should be happy about that. I'm not. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'll tell you why. When I watched this Dolphin Buffalo game, I felt like Buffalo was giving Miami every single opportunity to win that game. If we needed an interception, we got it. We needed a turnover, we got it. No, and it looked like Buffalo was willing to give Miami that game, and they did not take advantage of the opportunity. When you look at that game, first half. No, we just break it down by half. First half, they go into halftime. They're winning 14-7, or no, yeah, 14-7. Yes, 14-7. They are winning at halftime. And here's what you had: you had two interceptions, and you had a complete. I'm not gonna call it an idiotic play, but just a complete, I will say, lapse of intelligence. No, in that first half for Buffalo, where they're throwing the ball outside of the end zone with 11 seconds left with no timeouts. They get tackled at the one. They don't have enough time to get a play out. And that's what you got in the fourth half. You only were able to put up 14 points. That's it. You were able to put up 14 points. And we go into the halftime. We're leading 14-10. We come out in the second half, and it's somewhat the same thing. It's almost as if Buffalo is doing what they can to give Miami this game. No, and it looks like it's going to go that way. It looks like it's going to go that way. You have Josh Allen get strip sack, fumble, and then Miami, who can't generate any offense. And we're going to talk a little bit about their offense here in a second, because I'm not a coach. I'm not going to try to make it seem like I'm an expert at any of this. I am just an observer. I just look and I have an opinion. But man, sometimes this offense looks stale. But they can't move the ball, of course. No, they're punting, and eventually, if you continue to give Josh Allen and its Buffalo Bills a team the ball, they're probably going to put points up. So they punted right there to fourth quarter. You had the big punt return for a touchdown. Evens the game 14-14. Still can't get the ball moving on the offensive side. Still can't generate anything. Of course, No, all Buffalo needs is one more drive. They drive it down to get the touchdown, 21-14. And then, of course, you have the last drive where Tua throws the interception. After the Dolphins have stopped them on a 4th and 1, 4th and inches, we get the ball back. Tua throws the interception, trying to hit Chase Claypool on an out route, and the game's over. They lose the division after being up by 3 games with 5 games left. No, up by 3 games with 5 games left in December, and they lose the division. And now we're traveling to Kansas City for that playoff game. It's really tough to not have same old Dolphins mindset. It's really tough. I'm going to be honest with you. I felt like the Dolphins had every opportunity this year to show their growth and to show that they're able to win big games, and they failed every one of them. And most people will look at it and say, hey, no, you play a 17-game season. You won 11 of them. No, you lost 6 of them. One of them you probably should not have lost, which was the Tennessee game, which really came back to bite them. I will say that. And some of the other ones were really close games. You had 2 blowouts, Buffalo the first time, and Baltimore. And then every other game, honestly speaking, was close. I get all of that. I get all of that. I'm not arguing that. No, in a normal season, you might see us have that silver lining. But here's the thing for me when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. In the games that they were losing, it seems like they always had an opportunity to win. And in my opinion, because that's all it is, it's an opinion, you have to be able to take the ball, move it down the field, and win those games. Now, of course, people say, well, he did it against the Chargers, or they did it against the Chargers, and they did it against the Cowboys. Okay, I get that. But the Philly game, you had opportunities. You did not capitalize. Okay? The Tennessee game, you had opportunities. We did not capitalize. Okay? The Chiefs game, we had opportunities. Even with a slow start, we did not capitalize. This game, Buffalo, we had opportunities. We did not capitalize. And the thing is, if you look through all of those games, there was opportunities for Tua and that offense to win them. Each of them. We had the ball, and we just did not execute for whatever reason. And to me, that is not a good sign as they get ready to go into the playoffs. And then on top of that, they're super injured, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I was looking today where they're signing guys, Justice Houston, um, no, Bruce Irvin. I'm like, oh my God, we're just bringing in guys because we just don't have anybody. They're just super hurt. And it's not the time where you're just still struggling to score points. And it brings a sense of frustration simply because of the fact that you see some of the things that they're really good at. You see some of the things they've gotten better at. No, the running game really works. I don't know why we don't run the ball more. So you see these things that can happen, that can work, and it's almost as if we don't utilizing them or we're not utilizing them. So everyone's right. The national media is right. The Dolphins have not shown that they can win tough games. So why do we think they will? If you were to ask me, can the Dolphins win this game in Kansas City? Yeah, I think they can. But I have no confidence that they will, simply because the fact that they have not done that. No, so no, I do not go into that game saying I feel they can win this game. I don't. I feel like they will go up there and you're going to see what we've seen in every tough game that they played this year. Them not show up. Them not do what they need to do on the offensive side of the ball. And I think it's a combination of all things. Though I don't think the blame falls on just one person. A lot of person wants to point at Tua. A lot of person wants to point at Mike McDaniel. I'll be honest. Tyreek Hill, he has dropped some passes in big moments. Tua has missed some throws in big moments. I don't think Mike McDaniel has called really good plays in big moments. So I think that falls on all of them. One of the things that I will say about Tua, and this is an interesting take, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Tua in the future. Now, I like Tua as a fan. Me and my dad, we talk a lot, and one of the things that we say that even when the Dolphins lose, we want to see Tua play well because we want to kill the narrative that he's not a good quarterback. So I would love to kill that narrative. That he's just not good. I gotta listen to it from people in the media, gotta listen to it from my brothers, whatever the case may be. So even when the Dolphins aren't winning, we root for Tua. We want to see him play well. But one of his biggest deficiencies, or one of the things that I'm not gonna see he can't do, but I'll say that he doesn't do, is he doesn't extend plays. If you look at some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I won't even say the best quarterbacks, but the quarterbacks in the NFL. And I was trying to think of one that played like Tua, and I couldn't come up with one. But you will see that extending the play is a very important aspect of being a quarterback. Now, everybody has a scheme. Everybody has their offensive scheme that they want to run. Everybody, every team. If you go through all 32 teams, they have an offensive scheme that they want to run. No, but what separates what Cam Newton was saying, game changers, no game managers, what separates them is when you have a scheme, you have a play that breaks down, and now I need to create one or two or even three more seconds to get to something else. Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. You see them, they're able to do that. Even quarterbacks like Brock Purdy, Matthew Stafford. You go down to the other side, Geno Smith, whoever, they're able to extend plays just another 2 to 3 seconds to give themselves an opportunity to make a play. Tua doesn't do that. And I don't know if he doesn't do it because he can't, or I don't know if he just won't do it because of the injuries. No, but what Tua does is if the play is not there, if the play is covered, he either has to throw the ball away or he has to chuck it into the ground. You see a lot of that. There's not a lot of scrambling. There's not a lot of let me roll out to the right, give myself a little bit of extra time. He does roll to the left at times. No, that's his dominant hand, of course, him being left-handed. But a lot of times he's probably just going to throw that out to the flat to someone that's probably rolling out to the flat. But he really does not extend plays. And it's going to be interesting is that to see if that's going to be a part of his growth maturation. Because if he does not have the ability to do that, then I think a lot of individuals that are saying Tua has hit his ceiling will probably be right. He's going to be a quarterback that's going to be super accurate. He'll probably throw for 44 to 47 yards a year. He'll have 30 to 35 touchdowns, maybe 10 to 15 interceptions. But they will probably only get to the first or the second round of the playoffs because defenses are smart, and once they start to figure out exactly what you're trying to do, they will find ways to stop that. A couple of years ago, we saw this happen with Patrick Mahomes, where people were saying, "All right, we're just gonna put somebody over the top," and it was like he was like, "Okay, I have to do this a different way. I have to learn how to play a different way." And he was able to figure that out. It's going to be the same thing, but the difference is Pat extended plays. He's always extended plays. Same thing with Lamar. He extended plays. Same thing with Josh Allen. They extend plays. And Tua is going to have to get to a point where he can extend plays and everything is just not on timing. And if the timing gets off, okay, we're useless because that is what the offense have looked like for the 5 or 6 weeks. The offense have not been able to generate much of anything. I will be very interested. I don't really have it right now to see when was the last time the Dolphins scored three offensive touchdowns in one game. No, in a game. No. Matter of fact, I'm going to look this up real fast to see when was the last time the Dolphins scored three offensive touchdowns in one game because I will be willing to bet that it was weeks ago. When I say weeks, I'm talking 5, 6, no, maybe even 7 weeks ago. So, no, last week, 14 to 21. The week before, 19 to 56. The week before, 22 to 20. That's the Cowboys. That were a bunch of field goals. The week before that, okay, no, the Jets. No, so No, so 4 weeks was the last time that they scored three offensive touchdowns in one game. And I think even with that one, it was exactly three offensive touchdowns. That was the Raheem Mostert touchdown. Jalen Water had a long touchdown. Mostert had a second touchdown. So it was three offensive touchdowns that game. You had the Javon Holland run back. That's how they ended up with 30 points. But the week before that, so they did 30 against the Jets. The week before that, when they was in Tennessee, they had 27 points, but those were off turnovers. We remember that game. The last two touchdowns were off turnovers. So I don't know if you want to go there. The week before that was the Redskins. I mean, I'm sorry, the Commanders games. Please excuse me. Was to watch the Commanders game, and yeah, that was the last time we've seen them really be dominant on offense. And that is an issue when you're going into the playoffs. So Dolphins, as a fan, not confident in this win, in getting this win. I do not feel that we have the capacity to go up there and win a game in Kansas City, even though Kansas City is not playing the best right now. But we'll see. No, we'll see. So there's my Dolphin talk. Of course, the other AFC games you have Cleveland, Houston. We talked a little bit about that. We also have Pittsburgh and Buffalo. I think Buffalo would go ahead and win that game. I don't think that's going to be much of an issue for Buffalo to get that win. You never know. JJ Watt is not playing, or TJ Watt is not playing, so maybe they can make it a little bit more interesting. But honestly speaking, I don't think it's going to be a problem for Buffalo to get that win. Now, on the NFC side, those games are a little bit more interesting. Though you have the Cowboys going against the Packers. Now, of course, we know the Cowboys, they play great at home. And the Packers are kind of playing really good football right now. So that's going to be an interesting game. I'm not sure. I don't do predictions. I'm not sure who has the upper hand on that game. I would probably say the Cowboys because they're at home. But the way Green Bay is playing right now, I think Green Bay can absolutely win that game. You have the Eagles going against the Buccaneers. I think the Bucks are going to win that game. I'll be honest with you. No, I think the Bucks are going to win that game simply because of the fact that the Eagles have not shown that they're able to win. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. I'm hearing people say maybe it's time for them to get a new coach. I'm like, wow, we're trying to get rid of Sirianni after going to Super Bowl last year. Wow. I hear some individuals saying he's lost his team. I don't know, but I really don't think the Bucks. No, I think the Bucks will win this game. I don't know if the Eagles have what it takes to win this game. So we'll see. And probably the premier game of the weekend, believe it or not, the Detroit Lions and the LA Rams. You have golf, you have Stafford playing against the teams that traded them. I would love to see Detroit win this game. I'm gonna be honest with you. I would love to see Detroit win this game simply because of the fact that I would love to see that I like to see the growth of Jared Goff. I still don't think he's a perfect quarterback, but I think he's a lot better than what he was when he was in LA, even though he went to a Super Bowl in LA. So I would love to see them win that game. I would love to see Detroit win that game simply because of the fact that Jared Goff, I think he deserves it. I like Dan Campbell. I like that Detroit team. I'll be honest with you. I like the Detroit team. So I would love to see them win. I don't think it's going to be easy because I think the Rams are playing really good right now. Stafford's playing good. Cooper Cup, Puka Nakua, really fun offense. McVay has always had a fun offense. So it's not going to be an easy game, but we'll see. That's going to be a very, very interesting game this weekend. So some fun stuff going on. Looking forward to the playoffs on Saturday and Sunday, and we'll see what the results are going to be. Now, last thing we'll talk about today before we get out of here is some of the coaching changes. Of course, as we end the season, you start to see teams put themselves in position to find their new coaches, their new leaders. Of course, you have some firings throughout the season. The Raiders, they got rid of Josh McDaniels. We saw Carolina get rid of their head coach. So, of course, those vacancies are there. And then, of course, as soon as the season is over, we see the Commanders get rid of Ron Rivera. A couple of surprises, though. The Patriots, they decided to move on from Bill Belichick. Seattle decides to move on from Pete Carroll. What other vacancies are they out there? Of course, throughout this, during the season as well, Brandon Staley, he gets fired from the Chargers, which is interesting. I forgot about that one because I felt like Brandon Staley should have been gone a long time ago. So some really good coaching jobs out there. There's some really good jobs. I believe there are. But I think the ones that are the most surprising is the Seattle coaching position. I was surprised to see them get rid of Pete Carroll. Not because Pete Carroll was this dominant coach, but I didn't think Pete Carroll was the issue in Seattle. And I understand that they are used to being, the leader of that division, them and San Francisco. But I didn't see anything that made Pete Carroll be like, you know what? No, this no no, he's lost the team, or it's time to move on from him. I know Mina Kimes was talking about the defense and how he just never seemed to get that part of it right. So, though there's an understanding that okay, maybe it's time to move on. But I really think Pete Carroll's a good coach. So it's going to be interesting to see what Seattle does. And then you had the New England, which everyone saw coming. We kind of saw Bill Belichick moving on from the New England Patriots, simply because of the fact that the Patriots have not been good since Tom Brady left. And I think it was time. I think it was time. I think no, Coach Belichick would continue to coach. I just think that it was time to move on um, from New England. So um, we're going to talk a little bit about Bill Belichick because I feel a little bit differently from the majority when it comes to Belichick and Brady and New England. So, um, of course, Belichick's been in New England 24 years, 6 championships. He's won the AFC East, who knows how many years, probably just about every year he was there, except for no 3 or 4 of them. So, um, he's legendary. No, he is legendary. I would say the best NFL coach ever. No, simply because of how he's won the championships. But I also do understand why it was time for him to leave New England. A lot of individuals will say, well, no, he has to go because he's one of the ones that responsible for pushing Tom Brady out. And I do believe that. I do believe he has something to do with that. I understand it as well. I'm probably one of the few that understand it. And I'm also one of the few that don't feel like Tom Brady proved his point by winning a championship in Tampa Bay. No, and I know I'm in the minority with that. But here's why I feel that way. I think Tom Brady is the greatest winner to ever play the game. I think he's the most successful quarterback to ever play the game. I do. But I also feel like Bill Belichick put Tom Brady in positions to win a couple of those Super Bowls because Tom Brady was not asked to do much. No, 2 examples. Of course, they won 6 championships together. The first championship against the Rams, I feel like that was a defensive championship. Now, if you look through that whole playoff time, that whole playoff run, I think Tom Brady might have thrown 1 touchdown pass throughout the entire run. Now, I will say this. In that Rams Super Bowl, Tom Brady did lead them and put them in field goal position where they were kicking, I think, like a 47, 48-yard field goal to win that game. I think he had the game like a 20, 30, an additional 25, 30 yards or whatever the case. And he did put them in the right spots to kick that game winning field goal. But I do feel like that Super Bowl was won because of how dominant that defense is. Okay. And then we'll go to the last Super Bowl they won together, though, against the Rams again. And I feel like that Super Bowl was won because of the defense. It was 13-3. So I think that those two Super Bowls were won because of how dominant the defense is. Even if you go to the Carolina Super Bowl, if you remember that game, it started out as a defensive struggle, and then points started to be scored on the latter part of the game. Then you had the Philly Super Bowl, which I think is where Tom Brady really started to come into his own in that Philly Super Bowl. Where T.O. was just killing them and Tom Brady had to match them. And those was the first three. And then, of course, you come back to the second one. You had the Seattle Super Bowl, which Tom Brady led a really good drive there. You had the Atlanta Super Bowl, which was all Tom Brady. That's Tom Brady's Super Bowl to me, the Atlanta one. And then, of course, the Rams one. All right. That's not to even talk about the Super Bowls that they had against the Giants, where they lost two against the Giants. Was it two? Yeah. They lost two against the Giants, and then they lost, no, of course, to the Eagles as well. That's not to even mention those, but you just I mean, he to me, they just work well together. Now, of course, we know Tom Brady. He ended up going to Tampa Bay and winning another Super Bowl. But I honestly do not put that Super Bowl on Tom Brady. I understand that because he won it, we give him all the credit. But do we not remember that team was really good? That defense was really dominant. And if my memory serves me correctly, in the NFC Championship game, Tom Brady was trying to give that game to Green Bay. I mean, he was doing everything he could to get that game to Green Bay. Interception after interception. I think he might have threw three interceptions back to back to back. But because that defense was so dominant, they were able to just stop whatever it is that Green Bay was trying to do. And then, of course, you had the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, where Patrick Mahomes is playing with no offensive tackles, and he's literally running for his life the entire game. So I understand that we'll say, okay, well, he proved his point, by winning another championship without Bill Belichick. And I'm like, no, he just went to a really good team. I'm like, that's what happens when you're missing a piece and you put a really clutch piece in a really good team. They can win the Super Bowl. If you would have went and put Bill Belichick on that Tampa Bay team, no, they probably win the Super Bowl. I don't take anything away from that. Just like Peyton Manning leaving Tony Dungy, or Jim Caldwell, who he actually won the Super Bowl with, or no, I think he did win it with Tony Dungy. And going over to Denver, you don't minimize who Tony Dungy was, because Peyton Manning kind of did the same thing. Went to a team with a dominant defense and won a Super Bowl where they kind of carried them, throughout the year. I mean, it's the same thing. Now, of course, Tom Brady did not have the year that Peyton Manning had when Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that they were the same quarterback. What I'm saying is that I think that Tom Brady went to a really good team. And then he brought in, Leonard Fournette, Gronk, who was still young at the time. It always amazes me when I'm seeing how young Gronk is. Antonio Brown. I mean, he's bringing in all of these guys, to fit what he wants to do. Of course, when you got a guy that is that clutch, they're going to win the Super Bowl. But I don't take anything away and say, okay, well, he proved that he didn't need Bill Belichick to win. Now, maybe he, no, I'm yeah, I just don't give him all of that credit, me personally, because he won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, because I saw Jameis Winston have that same team and throw 30 interceptions and that team still be 8-8. That's how good that team was. But I mean, that's my Tom Brady take. Love Tom Brady. He's a Michigan guy. Greatest winner. One of the most clutch guys I've ever seen play. I just hate that people say that he was the reason why the Patriots were good, and you kind of take the credit away from Belichick. So that's my take. I think Bill's had a great year. Really interested to see where he lands, where he ends up. lot going on right now. Really looking forward to the playoffs this upcoming weekend. And it should be fun. No, we'll see what happens. So that is my take on sports. What we have coming up. A couple of things that I want to mention before we get out of here for this segment is of course, the twin boys don't have a daughter at Auburn who's doing really good. Don't hear from her a lot, but she's doing really good over there. And the boys came home from school today, and they were super excited because they got the acceptance certificates for those schools that they've applied for. I'm proud that even though they are athletes, they are getting into schools academically. I think that's a big deal. Now, of course, we're still hoping that we can get some of these sports scholarships because that would help with paying for school because of course we know college not cheap, education is not cheap. But I was really proud, no, just as proud as they were to see them come down, and one of them has been accepted into Troy as well as Jacksonville State. So he had his Troy and it has his name on it. He's walking around with it. He's excited. And the other one has been accepted to Mississippi State, as well as Alabama State. And he got his certificate from Alabama State saying you've been accepted, and they're really excited. And I had to tell them, hey, guys, well, you still got to choose what school you want to go to. Because if you don't make a choice, then, they're just certificates. So, really proud moment seeing their names on this. They've grown up to be really strong young men, although they're still teenagers. And as a father, the teenagers always are giving you a reason to get on them. So you still have that aspect of it. I'm really proud of the young men that they are becoming. My greatest accomplishment, honestly speaking, is being a father. And one of these days we'll do a segment on that. We'll talk about what it's been like for me being a father, some of the things that I've had to deal with, because I was a single father for quite a while, and we'll talk through that as sports start to slow down. We'll have some of those family segments. So, but yeah, my greatest accomplishment is being a dad. That's what I appreciate. That's what I cherish more than anything. So it always makes me happy, and makes me proud when I see them happy. So just wanted to share that. Thought that was a pretty cool moment that I wish I would have captured while they were doing it. So with that, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna get out of here. Love you all. Those of you that look at this, I know my family looks at this. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support. One of these days, I'm going to really learn how to do the subscribe, like all of that things. We'll put some music behind it, and we're gonna get some of you all on here. That's the one thing that I really want to do. I want to get you all on here where we can have more versatile conversations about things, life, family, some of the things that I really want to talk about where it's not just so sports heavy. So we'll continue to work on that. Love you all, and I'll talk to you all next week. Peace.